Everybody, my name is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? I have my very big book, OAHSPE. And today I'm going to read from the Book of Apollo, son of Jehovah. I was debating on doing Osiris. But Osiris, he's very, very large, and I got to dissect a bit of the book. It's rather lengthy. So I want to read parts of Apollo. It's a bit shorter. I might not go into the Lord's book. We'll see. Because that also, it's like two books in one. And Thor was it's the shortest of them. But yeah. If my work resonates with you, please like, please subscribe, and if you want to get the word out, please share. I think it's very important that we hold different perceptions of books that have been written throughout time and to expose ourselves to new perspectives. I'm just going to fix that angle. Okay. Book of Apollo, son of Jehovah. Being the heavenly administration of Apollo and Therian god. Chapter 1. Apollo, son of Jehovah, resident of Ptomus in Etheria, and the god of Sophad and Donga and Ta. In the south province of Buru, Orion chief, controller of vortices, said, I, Apollo, once a mortal, proclaim first wisdom, peace, and patience unto all men, and comprehensive judgment, whereof I speak. Second, to perceive the reason of things, as to what seemeth to have been, and of what cometh after. For the Great Spirit is all harmony and perfection, abounding in time and in worlds to accomplish all possible imaginings. Wherefore be ye magnified in conception, not judging but the little understanding of mortals. So that he that asserteth harmony, being more to the order of Jehovah than that which is ill-formed or out of time, hath little reason to provide his assertion before a wise man. As one may assert that ripe fruit is nearer perfection than that which is green, which assertion is self-evident without proof, so in the understanding of gods, in the management of worlds, are things past and present, not things past and present in fact, but more like the immature and the mature. Since then man perceiveth that words at best are but slow and coarse representations of the soul's conception of things, how much further distant lieth a God's wisdom beyond the reach of mortal understanding. Remember, O man, that couldst thou in a moment of time recollect all thou hadst ever learned, thou wouldst be wise indeed. Wert thou in tune with myself, such would thy wisdom, to advance in such direction whereby man becometh attuned, first with himself, then with his immediate surroundings, then with the magnitude of worlds, and then with Jehovah, so that he moveth, accepteth, and comprehendeth harmoniously, is to become one with the Father. Which condition awaiteth all men, and is called in high heaven nirvana, because to him that hath attained it, things past and things to come are as an open book. He can look back to his own beginning in the world, and even beyond, and whatsoever he directeth his eye, he can see and hear, even as if the matter now were. Marvel not, O man, that the gods reveal the words and signs of things long since perished corporally. The proofs he could give, thou couldst not understand. For the basis of spiritual entity lieth not within the measure of the corporal senses. Nevertheless, Jehovah hath given thee comparisons, as a portrait of a man showeth his looks, even after his corporal body hath perished. And yet the picture is but a representative. To the spirit, a corporal body is but a representative, being a manifested production of a spirit. Whoa. Me too. As out of corporal things a new thing is produced and born into the world, so out of Jehovah is born the spirit of man. Neither leadeth the corporal the spirit, nor the spirit the corporal, but Jehovah doeth all. Think not then that when the corporal body is dead and moldereth back to original elements, that in like manner the spirit of man will resolve itself back into Jehovah. For spirit is not bound by similar rules, as a corporal body groweth by aggregating it to itself, so not groweth the spirit of man, but by the opposite, which is giving away. Remember, O man, the more thou puttest forth thy soul to give light and wisdom to others, the more thou receivest, wherein thou shalt comprehend in the reason of things everlasting life to the spirit of man. So also to him that desireth to comprehend Jehovah, let him describe all highest constantly. To him that desireth to comprehend the Etherian worlds, the homes of spirits long risen in nirvana, let him describe them. Fear not, O man, that passed millions of times in the magnitude of the Father's kingdoms, till thou canst shoot an arrow without striking the air. Fear not for thy weak thoughts shooting amiss in Jehovah's words. I, Apollo, earth-born, of the continent Pan, submerged by Alph, the Orion chief, by Jehovah's command, proclaim in the name of the Father, creator of worlds, peace and wisdom unto the nations and tribes of men. First, against all vanity and self-conceit in the souls of man, wherein every cycle asserteth itself wise and great and learned, and the ancient fools. For the evidence of wisdom lieth not in learning one thing only, but in the adaptation of man to Jehovah and his works, in which measure the modern and the ancient stand not upon their judgment in the matter, but by Jehovah's. For if the ancient was not perfect in his place, neither thou art, O man, of this day, but before the gods are all the ages adept as Jehovah created them, judge not him, for thy judgment is limited. Excuse me. That which was profitable to the soul of man, the Father revealed to the ancients. That which is profitable to the soul of man today revealeth he is this day. For which reason I, his son, am come to fulfill my labor, even as all men in time must complete that which hath been assigned them, to rebuke vanity and self-conceit in them that perceive not wisdom in things long last, but applaud themselves without just measure before Jehovah, wherein the gods perceive their vanity and pity them, hoping rather to exalt their minds, that they may learn to perceive the Father's hand manifested in all things. Turn thine eyes inward, O man, and look at the spirit of things. Make thyself as a god looking down on new earth, where man hath been quickened into life and obtained to strength and learning. Behold his palaces and temples, his works in stone and iron and gold and silver, his knowledge of the sun and moon and stars, with written books to read, with clothes for the body, shoes for the feet, with great generals and armies of soldiers, and with land cultivated. Are these civilized? And war abounding? By what right hast thou made thyself a judge, O man? Who hath measured the inhabitants of the earth and found them pure and wise? Do more people now live on the land in peace and happiness than in many of the cycles past? Because thou art different in many excellences, thou shalt also remember that many great inventions are forgotten. The world hath been people over many times, and many times laid desolate. Who hath been the chief enemy to man? Who is his chief enemy today? Is it not thyself? Think not, O man, that because a few people perceive the higher light, the world is wise and good before the gods. For in all ages there have been a few. Yeah, today there are a few more in number than in ancient days. And in this is the sum of the enlightenment in the world. Hear me, O man of earth, and ye angels of heaven. I proclaim harmony, symmetry, and music. I am of the days of the fountain of these talents, descending to mortals. I was a shapely stone in Jehovah's edifice, and by hard toil a fashioner of flesh, mold of man and woman. As the ear of one man heareth music, and he crieth out with delight, a tune, a tune. And as the ear of another man heareth music, he cannot discern. He crieth out, a noise, a hideous noise. Wherefore then shall ye not judge them, and say the one hath an ear for music and the other not? The one is one with the music, the other being discordant himself, declareth there is no tune, but only noise. To which ye give preference in judgment as to music? Who hath not beholden Jehovah, the all-person? Who is the it that crieth out, I behold him not? No harmony, no symmetry, no music, no complete whole. And to which will he give preference to judgment? Is not the judgment of the perceiver higher than he who perceiveth not? This declare I of Jehovah, that in all ages there are many who perceive the all-person, and many who deny him. If then the lack of an ear for music maketh a man dumb to a tune, Is it not the lack of spiritual harmony then that causeth men to perceive not the everlasting presence of Jehovah, the all-person? Hear me, all angels and men. Can a man learn to sing who heareth not the harmony of a tune? How much less, then, can man or the spirits of the dead harmonize with eternal whole if they perceive him not? Okay, I'm going to jump around. This is chapter 3. I, Apollo, Jehovah's son, proclaimed an age when man on earth considered not harmony, nor symmetry, nor music as gods. And Jehovah's voice came to me in the Etherian firmament and place of Pitimus, saying, Apollo, my son, thou god of Suda, god of Danga, and god of Ta, behold the red star, the earth, she cometh through thy dominions. Go through to her with my hosts, a sufficient number, and give her a new god, and call his name Apollo. Remember, keys of Enoch. Behold, neither men nor angels on the red star comprehend the harmony of my works, and because of their own inharmony, they deny me, being blind to my person. Go thou, my son, and make them idolaters of harmony, symmetry, and music for a long season, that they may become organically attuned from the time of their birth upward. Give me 2 seconds, guys. I was just trying to find out where to skip around. Profiting in this, the people of the Red Star have become rich in rites and ceremonies, and preferring the swift-footed to the slow, the nimble to the clumsy, the Lewis have well laid out the road to thy success. So I perceived beforehand how I should proceed when I landed in the lower heaven and her earth. When the time came, I departed, still remembering my native star, with well-treasured pride, and that all things expressed the labor Jehovah put upon me, my own Onia excelled in beauty all other Etherian vessels that have ever descended to the earth. How should I comprehend thy magnitude, O Jehovah? What is the journey of a god before thee? We build a ship for 100 million and are vain of its size and beauty. But when we launch out into thy Etherian realms, we fain would hid our faces in shame of our vanity. We sail through 1,000 of thy crystal worlds and talk of great distances, but the mirror of thy boundless creation lieth still before us. We recall the red star, our native home, a single gem amidst the countless millions thou hast cast into the universe, and we are speechless because of thy awful extent. Wherein hast thou not expelled thyself, O Jehovah? In one moment we behold thy vastness, in another, the microscopic hand in the smallest etheric wave, and in the sphere of grass, down on the swift corporal stars. We applaud thee for thy handiwork, and yet ere our thoughts have overrun the smallest part, thou turnest our eyes inward to the soul of things, in endless wonder. How shall I comprehend thy designs, O Jehovah? Thou divest me back to the time thy angels came and stood man upright, saying, Be thou a man and be thou a woman, but thou would not. Again and again thy pitying hand stood them up, and thy voice came, saying, Talk, O man, come, thou shalt help to perfect thyself. But man was slow in perceiving wisdom. That which came to his flesh he loved. I remember the earth, O Father, men and women with long hair hanging down, and hands with claw nails, fierce and warlike, and hair in tufts and short curls, whose eyes were like lions and mouths wide and falling open like a dog that is tired. Therefore, thou hast called me, O Jehovah, and I perceive thy double purpose. For man left alone would select and mate and evolve to terrible war. And thou storeth here an idol to unfit him for cruel deeds. So from thy Etherian realms, wherein for 50,000 years thy gods and goddesses have trained me to comprehend the discipline of thy created heavens, I came descending down to the red star, where thou first quickened me into being, that I might fulfill thy mandates. Thy hand took me up, thy hand sent me down. I had learned not to fear. The tree of faith had grown in me. I knew the secret of all power, as a mortal goeth into a dark cavern, where the air is damp and unacceptable to the nose. So came my hosts, O Jehovah, out of the Etheria into the vortex of the earth, dull atmosphere. Thy voice came to me saying, Oh, go around the earth with thy Onya, my son. Stir up the atmospherians. They know no higher heaven. Behold, they have mutinied against my God and lords, have rejected my performed wisdom. Their delight is in war and the deeds of mortals. As men on earth gather around to witness beasts to battle, so gather these countless millions of spirits to witness kingdoms of mortals in war and fire and plunder, and by their presence urge men to cruelty and cunning horrors. Hear me, O man and angels, for my words learn to be wise and deep perceiving. He who standeth in darkness seeth not the time of Jehovah. None can comprehend. In the light should we be the delight of all men. But who practiceth to his highest knowledge? Before my days, time was no nearer the beginning of the universe than now. There were men who believed that with death, all would be ended to every man, and Jehovah sent angels to prove them in their folly. And though they saw them and talked with them face to face, many would not believe. And in the lower heaven, they were the same. They would not believe in the higher heaven. And though Etherians came to them to prove them in their folly and talk with them face to face, yet many would not believe. I searched the disbelievers to understand their souls, and I found that they were begotten in harmony. They prided themselves in their wisdom, but that they called wisdom was a serpent in the soul. Jehovah spake to me, saying, Hear thy creator, O my son, in Atmospheria, thou shalt appoint 10,000 lords with 10,000 kingdoms, and the earth and the inhabitants thereof shall be divided between them. And all thy lords shall be called Apollo, and they shall inspire men to make images of stone and wood. And the images shall have short arms and legs and long legs, and nails instead of claws on the fingers, and well-formed mouths with shape for motion of the cheeks. And thy Lord shall find I'm going to just say it, Loosh, who have been preparing these matters by birth, and the Loosh shall lead the angels around about amongst mortals, finding most commonly formed men and women and young children. And when they have those chosen them, they shall report the matter to the lords, and they shall send Etherians to those mortals who selected, and they shall be quickened by signs and miracles. And it shall be proven before all nations of earth, and their kings and queens and governors, that the comeliness of the forms are pleasant in my sight. Therefore I come to them. And those who are those selected shall sing and dance by entrancement, so that the kings and queens shall overcome by achievements. And those that dance shall be made to float in the air and sail about in the dance. For I will turn the judgment of man to beautify himself, and in doing so, he shall learn to perceive beauty and harmony in my works. Oh boy. Think not, O man, the gods always deliver the nations of earth in a day or by miracles. They go to the foundation of a matter. They make man a servant to help deliver himself. They stir up the nation in rites and ceremonies first, then come after and appropriate the rites and ceremonies. And the women look on, receiving the spirit of the matter in their souls, the which enthralleth on their offspring, that which is desired by the gods. With the host of high heaven, unseen by mortals, the Lord stir up the whole world. In one generation, behold, a new race is born. Man is unfitted for dangerous war, and no longer the delight of Drudras hanging around. And the Drudras, the familiars, turn from the peaceful earth to the stale and unprofitable in bloody entrailments, to find their own petty kingdoms broken down and gone. Be wise, O man, and ye angels of earth. Hear the voice of thy brother, God of three worlds. I will tell thee a great secret. These are the words of thy creator. Men and women are procreators. I'm going to read that again. I will tell thee a great secret. These are the words of thy creator. Man and woman are procreators. Whom they beget are theirs, saith Jehovah, not for a day, but forever. Take heed of thy offspring, O woman. Take heed, O man. Wilt thou be entrailed with Drudras to pull thee down? Wilt those chose offspring to glorify Jehovah? Have not the people boasted, O earth? Have they not said, O the poorest ancients, what of them? Will they turn away from the idols of Apollo and set them on their own account? Can the people hand down a name and models to live forever? According to the perfection of the images, so were they reckoned favored by Jehovah. And the sign of Jehovah's approval was manifested in the time of the sacred dance. given by the suis selected, which was, if the whirling dance caused many women to fall down by the enchantment, then Jehovah was pleased. Oh, hear me, O man, the enchantment of the woman was what the Lord deserves. But the impression of the soul of women shapeth the unborn child. Therefore, they worshipped blindly before the idols, not being sufficiently wise to understand how Jehovah was laying down the foundation for the coming race. O ye of little wisdom, compared with the lords of heaven, how ye are puffed up in judgment, not knowing the race whence ye sprang. Jehovah's gods and lords mold the inhabitants of the earth, as clay is molded in the potter's hand. They set them up and show them the way, and they say to go. And mortals go on a little, while like a young child that tottereth and falleth. And again the lords set them up, and men in ingratitude forgiveth and denieth his God. The unseen angels led men and women together and say, Marry, and they wed and bring forth of the Lord. The man inquireth, What meanest thou? Bring forth of thy Lord. But his judgment is under a cloud. He flattereth himself that Jehovah created him, and then went away, and since then hath been his own master. Show me one who is as good as he understandeth to be, that liveth as wisely as his goodness desireth he should. He will understand my words. I can come to him and inspire him with the greatest wisdom. He will comprehend the love of God hath over mortals, and the patience of the toiling lords and angels. Hear me, O man, I will answer thee a great matter. The angels of heaven who are good labor for those beneath them. This is their work day and night. Think not that they go away to idleness forever. To the Etherian industry becometh rest. To those who have attained to be gods, there is spontaneous growth forever. Remember this and be wise. To the atmospherian and to the mortals, idleness of soul letteth downward forever. Remember also and be wise. Behold the rose and the lily, they are perfect in their order. Being one with Jehovah, they painted not themselves. Let thy soul practice with thy Creator, and thou shalt become one with him, even his Son. Find thou the symmetry of flesh, the symmetry of the spirit, the harmony of music, and consider wisely thy behavior. The star of Jehovah is within thy soul. Feed it, O man, and thou, O angel of heaven, and it will grow to be a god. Rob it or starve it, and thou shalt remain nothing. It is weak and dim in the vein. It is bright and of great power in him who forgetteth himself in laboring for others. So I sent messengers around the world, repeating that Jehovah had commanded. And I added also, when the time of Dan is complete, behold, my host shall assemble and go, for whence we shall ascend to our Etherian worlds. Let my messengers invite all people in all the kingdoms of Atmospheria to be present. And these things were done. Neither was there a temple in all the world for the consulting the spirits and gods, but what was usurped by my Etherian hosts, so that when my kings or queens came to consult the oracle on matters of war or personal aggrandizement, my hosts answered them not to their own profit, but with their voice of Jehovah. So it turned out that when the chief false gods and false lords were driven out of the corporal temples, they lost interest in mortal affairs. And I classified them and made new kingdoms in the lower heaven for them, forming them into confederacies. And they too became earnest workers to establish themselves in harmony, symmetry, and music. And at the end of the time of dawn, there was not one false god nor false lord in the atmosphere. Apollo said, "Hear thy decree of Jehovah, O ye gods and lords. I, his son, God of 3 worlds, speak. In my speech lieth the wisdom of time, the evidence of 50,000 years. Here is a great matter, O ye gods, answer it, O ye lords of heaven and earth. A child learneth from that which is around about, a man learneth from that which is around about. A God and a Lord learn from that which is around about. Neither can they acquire anything more, forever Jehovah saith. I have decreed the breaking up of old foundations in new creations. I provide food for the souls of gods and men." Apollo said, "To condense and to expand and to condense. Is that all? Who shall fashion a corporal world by compressing either, or by standing still, expanding his own soul? How long will they be entrailed with idle desires and self-ease and self-glory? Jehovah saith, when the lower heaven turneth into itself, it soon turneth downward also, and it moldeth the earthborn. Look to it, O my sons and daughters, that ye preserve the high estate of heaven," Apollo said. To be a god is not all, to be a lord is not all. Ye shall forever invent new stratagems in Jehovah's kingdoms. Your people shall forever infatuate with continual surprises, or your kingdoms in heaven will go down. Apollo said to a weak man, "Is nothing to be a weak king, is nothing to be a weak god, is nothing but to be strong with Jehovah. Furnisheth food for the kingdoms of men and angels. Think not, ye gods and lords, that to be good God is easy, or to be a good Lord is easy, or to be a good corporal king is easy. He who ruleth in heavenly kingdoms must forever furnish food for the souls of angels and men." His speech is cunning in denial, his arguments for liberty, the bait of Hada. He crieth out in justification of his mutiny, "Liberty, liberty!" But he layeth in harmony and darkness. After that, he rusheth to the front, crying out, "Follow me, follow me. I will lead to the truth and light." And he himself becometh a god, but in falsehood, even as by falsehood he denied the true God. A great fact declared I unto you, O gods and lords. A line lieth betwixt the man who hath too much opinion of his own, and he who hath no opinion at all. One is to be pitied, the other censured. When judge ye, do the gods pity of these two, and who censure? None could answer Apollo. So he spake further, saying, "Pity ye him who hath too much opinion of his own. For all men he standeth the furthest from Jehovah, but the wise man and wise angel followed the median line betwixt the two, Herein lie the harmony of a man's soul. Apollo, son of Jehovah, said, in Jehovah's name spake, I, Apollo, God of Etheria, hear me, O ye gods and lords. The power of the Father resteth in my soul. My words are of wisdom. Think of the great matter, the growth of love. As a man loveth his city and his country, what think ye, Apollo, hath forgotten? Have I not told in Etheria, I sprang from the red star, the earth? Wherefore shall I not take pride before Jehovah, and hold up my head in Etheria, where I have neighbors that sprang from other stars? Shall a man forget his love because he is God? Nay, verily, when I was mortal, I loved my neighbors. When I entered the second resurrection in Atmosphere, I loved all the people of the earth. And when I rose to Etheria, my love expanded to 1,000 worlds. But of all places, how can I make the earth and her heaven second in my love of my soul? As a mother inventeth diversions and employment for her children, shall I not gather fruit from Jehovah's respiratories? To feed the atmospherean heavens, I came and found ye in the dark forest, with briars and thorns. But behold, O ye gods and lords, the lower heaven hath become a paradise. Let me recall the philosophies I have overthrown. The false gods and false lords said, it is well that there be war and destruction in heaven, and otherwise it would soon be too full. For they saw not the higher heavens. Their arguments were framed in a dark corner. And because of their evil inspiration, they gave mortals the same philosophy, saying war is justifiable, lest the earth become too full. For these dark angels shut out from mortals the higher light of faith in Jehovah, justifying themselves in war, and the slaying of whom Jehovah had created alive, by their behavior thrusting condemnation in Jehovah's face for what Jehovah had done. Neither knew these mortal philosophers that they were under the inspiration of spirits of darkness, nor would they wait till the earth was full of people to prove whether their philosophy was true or false. For as ye heaven were given to deeds of darkness, your kingdoms react on earth, make droogs out of men and women, from which have all these heavens turned from evil's ways and become as stars of glory in Jehovah's universe. Think not the only great thunders and terrible stratagems can govern heaven and earth righteously, for as one man in any army may cause a panic, or one brave man's uprise hand led a nation on to victory, so can he, O gods and lords, by wisdom, in the smallest of Jehovah's plans, rule over heaven and earth, for the glory his everlasting kingdoms. That which I declare unto you, go ye and declare throughout heaven, for the fruit of your teaching shall enrich the earth people through their guardian spirits, and they shall likewise go about preaching among themselves. Oh boy. I'm going to skip around a little bit, guys. God took off the triangle and hung it on Gur's, God's neck, saying, "Oh, now bestow thee with the heirloom of the gods of the red star, the triangle of the ancients, and that thou mayest be still further honored, behold, the higher than I, even Apollo, shall weave a crown for thy head. Apollo walked to the left hand and raised his hand upward, and there came from unseen space a flame of yellow light and lodged on his hand, and he turned it but half around, and lo, a crown with sparkling gems stood upon his fingers' ends. Apollo said, Incomprehensible all light, weave me a crown for thy son, God of heaven and earth. And even whilst he spake, it was done, and he placed it on God's head. And God went and sat in the midst of the throne, saying, Throne of thy throne, O Jehovah, all things are thine. For my resting place, to do thy will, this shall be. During the ceremonies, the music was timed accordingly, and when the new God was crowned, the multitude of 1,000,000,000 applauded with great joy. When all was quiet, God rose up from the throne, saying to Apollo and to him who had been God, in Jehovah's name, come and honor my throne. Accordingly, they both sat down on the right hand of God. God said, in 30 days, the dawn of Dan will end. Let the marshals, through the messengers, proclaim the resurrection of 2,000,000,000 to the Etherian heavens on that day. Proclaim it in all the heavens of the earth, inviting all to come who can, for it shall be a day of the feast of glory. But say not to anyone that there hath been a change of gods, nor that great Apollo will rise also, lest sorrow come upon the people. The marshals then selected messengers, a great number, and sent them throughout the heavens of the earth, proclaiming the commandments of God. God spake further, saying, For 30 days shall the council deliberate on my 10,000 lords, selecting and allowing them, and I will crown them in the name of the Father. Apollo then said, Now will I clothe myself in strange colors, that none shall know me. And during the 30 days I yet tarry, I will go around about the earth, that I may again look upon the star of my birth. And he who had given up the throne said, Thy joy shall be my joy also. I too will again visit the star of my birth. Accordingly, God said, Joy be unto ye twain in Jehovah's name. Behold, I will throw a thick blanket over thy throne, and ye shall change your attire. And when I withdraw it, ye shall walk forth unknown. And this was done. So Apollo visited all the divisions of earth and the islands in the ocean, and his traveling attendants, companions, and officers made a record of all things they saw, especially those relating to the corporeans, their manners, sizes, color, habits, education, procreative capabilities, and the records were taken with them to be finally carried to Etheria in the coming ascent. And Apollo and his companions then visited Atmospheria, making like observations of the people in the first and second resurrections, recording the number and kind of nurseries, hospitals, factories, schools, colleges, together with their ASFs, teachers, physicians, nurses, and so on. And this record was also prepared so as to form a brief history of the earth's heaven. On the 28th day, Apollo and his hosts returned to Garu, the place of the throne of God in the lower heaven. In the meantime, the word of God, commanding the assembly for the ascendance of 2,000 million of Jehovah's brides and bridegrooms, had aroused the people of the lower heaven beyond measure, millions of them never having witnessed an ascent, nor in fact had ever seen an Etherian atavis. I'm going to just exclude that. I cannot pronounce it. A ship of fire. On the 29th day in the evening, a light was seen high in the firmament, and to the northwest, brilliant like a star of the first magnitude. Presently, it grew larger and brighter and shot across toward the southwest firmament, and then began to descend toward the earth, growing larger and brighter as it came. The people of the lower heaven knew it was the fire ship of the third resurrection, and they rejoiced before Jehovah, singing and praying. And now the marshals and proper persons for the proposed commencement to form the groups of brides and bridegrooms of Jehovah. And the groups were arrayed in the stars, crescents, squares, circles, ovals, being classified according to their rates in these figures. And the groups had banners and signals of colored lights according to their rank in love, or intelligence, or good works, or other characteristic virtues. And these groups were arranged into combinations, every combination representing the work done by a sublord or subgod. And these combinations were again formed into 4 divisions, representing the 4 great divisions of earth, and the 4 lords, Jehovah's sons, so that when the whole 2,000 million spirits were in due form, they characterized harmony, symmetry, and music, being the symbol of Apollo, son of Jehovah, god of 3 Etherian worlds, Beret, Orion chief. At midnight, the sea of fire reached Shinbat, the border of the earth's vortex, just beyond the orbit of the moon, and in size twice the moon's diameter. Here the ship halted for 4 hours, then again began to descend, and rapidly fearful to behold, becoming more scarlet with the vortex, but growing larger and definite in figure. And lo and behold, when the ship drew near, it was in the form and figure of the groups of brides and bridegrooms of Jehovah. It had 50,000 curtains and 100,000 banners, and the host within the ship, 7 million souls, bore each a streamer of phosphorescent light of all colors, shades, and tints, and arrayed in symbols of the name of Apollo. Unlike all other Etherian ships of fire that has yet visited the earth's heavens, it was provided with openings in the bottom, 500,000 in number, which were the places of entrance and exit. And the openings were studded with crystals and ceaseless fire of conceivable colors, shades, tints, and sizes, figures, curves, circles, angles, crescents, and so on. And up within the openings were the crystals and opaque chambers provided for the heirs of the third resurrection. And yet within these chambers were the reports of the guardian angels of the lives and good work heretofore done by every man and woman of all 2,000 million who were to ascend to Jehovah's higher heavens. But in all the records, there was not recorded one evil thing or dark deed or selfish thought. For all of these, the ascended hosts had long since purged themselves, till they were gems of the pure light of the Father of all. High up within the ship were the beams and network of timber and ropes, arches, and around about the whole ship was the photosphere of its power, so that the whole fire ship was like a crystal ship within a globe of phosphorescent light. And yet, in fact, the ship was the true light, and the angels the light of that light, whilst the photosphere was really the shell of darkness made reflective. The mothership, perhaps? As the earth is opaque with a transparent vortex around it, so not so, but opposite is the structure of an Etherian fire ship, being lit and habitable with as well as without, like the Etherian worlds in the firmament. As Jehovah maketh worlds and sendeth them forth in the places of his firmament, so in imitation of him, his Etherian gods and goddesses make fire ships to traverse space from star to star and form one Etherian region to another. Great in wisdom and power are Jehovah's Etherian gods and goddesses, yet they too were once men and women with corporal bodies. Jehovah said, I have given power to spirits of the newly dead to clothe themselves from the atmosphere with corporal semblances of flesh and blood. And to my exalted atmospherian angels, I have given power to clothe themselves from the eth in forms of light. But to my exalted Etherian angels, I have given power to clothe their hosts with ships of fire and Akvins and fire ships. I'm going to skip that. The rites of the resurrection were completed, the whole of which would make a book, where the words written down, and as for the music, for which they were 500,000 singers and players, scarce a conception of it can be given to mortals. And when the light of the throne of God broke away a little, God announced 6 hours recreation, whereupon all the angels of Guru and of the Etherian heavens mingled together joyfully. Then filed in front the 10,000 lords and lordesses, they who once began false gods and false lords, and all of the ancient times arrayed in such gorgeous attire, now robbed in plain white without ornaments. The marshals opened the arches of the fire ship, but yet not a soul moved from his or her place. Then the great Apollo and Simead and Phaia came down and sat on the foot of the throne, more loved than all the gods who has yet visited the earth and her heavens. God came down from the throne and took Apollo's hand, saying, Arise, O son of Jehovah, and go thy way. Apollo rose up himself in tears and stood aside. When God now took the hand of Simead, saying, Arise, O daughter of Jehovah, and go thy way. Next he raised the long-tired Phrygia, when lo and behold, and God burst into tears and fell into each other's arms. Phrygia, a few words at most, was last to slack the fond embrace. And then he and great Apollo and Simead, light of heaven, broke loose and marched forth to the Etherian fire of ship. God resumed the throne, blinded by his tears. Now fell the mantles of Jehovah and his crowns on 2,000 million brides and bridegrooms. The awakening light of the Etherian firmament bespoke Jehovah's awful presence. The hosts moved with one accord and presently entered into the fire ship amidst a shower of Etherian flowers. The mighty vessel and the vessel of Apollo, adjointed, arose from Garu, rocking, rising, and moving to the music of a million trumpeters and singers, joined by Isinuars, the lower heavens. Higher and higher rose the Etherian fire ships, turning and raising, passing beyond the vortex of earth, beyond the Shinvat, out into the firmament of Etheria, higher and higher till it was lost in the distance. Jehovah spake in the light of the throne of God, saying to the council of Garu, Heaven, O my heaven, hear ye the words of your creator. O my beloved, sing songs to Apollo and his lords. Let my people rejoice, for the glory of my son is upon them. From my kingdom is the light and the life. Out of my wisdom Apollo hath come. Sing to him, O ye lords of heaven. Let my angels rejoice in his name, for he shall abide forever. Created I him for the glory of angels and men. In his idols and images shall my people behold the harmony of my beloved. With my own hands molded I the ankles and feet and well-rounded thighs. Behold the arms of my son, no longer than to the thighs and the dimples and the small wrists. He in step is high. He can spring like a deer, swift as the wind. He sitteth not on his haunches all day, with his hands down like a drook. That is tired, waiting for food. He fleeth in the plain and the forest on his swift feet. Proclaim ye Apollo in heaven on earth. He is risen. Higher than the sun is the holy begotten of Jehovah. Out of the virgin me is he come. Holy is symmetry and music. There is none like Apollo. The virgin bowed down, for her firstborn was the Redeemer of the world. In stone and wood and copper and gold and silver, he is stronger than 10 cities and wiser than 10,000 men. He cometh to the young mother's dream, and the shapeth her unborn, with limbs like a racer, and with long hair on the head. He standeth in the idol, and knoweth the mother's prayer every day, who calleth on the name Apollo, calleth on the Father, creator of all things. Blessed are the lords of Apollo, blessed are the sons and daughters of Apollo. Blessed are they to bring forth the shapeliness like my son Apollo. This mark I have put up before all women under the sun, the young women before marriage, and before the young men before marriage. Choosest thee of them in the likeness of Apollo, your heirs shall follow your creator. The sub-kingdoms were provided with sub-gods, second in rank before the lords, of whom they were 10,000, who had directed supervision over mortals, and the lords had every one a sufficiency of guardian angels, Ashars and Lush, masters of generations, so that they could direct any required number of such mortals as they choose. The lords most established their heavenly kingdoms in the temples where mortals came to worship, and by inspiration, they established spiritual chambers near the altars, where the prophets sat to learn the decrees of the Lord. Hither Toulouche came to receive their appointments over mortals for the purpose of bringing about marriages and acceptable before Jehovah. The affairs of the sub-gods were, however, holy with matters in heaven, save them commanded by the lords of special works. And it came to pass that mortals and affairs of mortals were directed and governed by the decrees of the lower heavens, and these again by the Etherian heavens, which where Jehovah directed. So Jehovah changed the forms of the earthborn, but they became worshippers of Apollo, accrediting to one another Jehovah's perfection in them, according to the form and figure of the flesh. And because of the idolatry of the women for Apollo, their children were born of good flesh and shapely, so that in 400 years the hair on their heads grew longer and straight, and man began to have beards. Neither considered any young man and virtue in a young woman so important as her form, not did any young woman value any virtue in man so great as well-molded form. When mortals died and their spirits entered the first resurrection, half the labor of the asifs, the receiving angels, were accomplished. So God changed the Yisim period to 3 years, save for their heirs of cousins and uncles and aunts, which were left at 5 years. So perfect was the way of heaven, that at the end of 400 years, God and his lords and his sub-gods had ready for the third resurrection of a grade 88 and 1,000 million souls for Jehovah's harvest. So Apollo and Adovah, the vision goddess of wrath, in cloak in Ethria down to the lower heavens to deliver God and his hosts, and they were thus raised up to Ethria in the sea of fire and made one with Jehovah. In the manner was the next government in the lower heaven and on earth, and the next deliverance in Dan was 10,000 million souls of grade 65. In the manner was the next administration in the lower heaven and on earth, and the deliverance of 10,000 million of grade 50. In like manner was the next administration of earth and in the lower heavens, and the deliverance was 10,000 million of grade 38. So Apollo commanded these to be delivered in the John fields of Oath and Sanka and Ornt, for they were unsuited for Ethria. In the like manner was the next administration in the lower heaven and on earth, and the deliverance was 60,000 million, but they were of grade 24. So Apollo commanded them to be delivered to the nebulous straits. Okay, this word is humongous, and I'm going to try it. Copa Wachita for further development. I'm sure I butchered that really bad. Just so you know, it's spelled Kopawotchiakka. Whatever that is, write it in the comments because my brain don't compute that stuff. In like manner was the administration in the lower heaven, but not so much on earth, for the kings and the queens carried the idolatry too far, and mortals took to destroying ill-formed children and cripples, thus casting the ills of mortality into heaven. So there was no deliverance for the last stand of Apollo's cycle, and Jehovah received no harvest. Thus ended the cycle of Jehovah, being 2,800 years. And I read the book of Thor already, but Thor comes next. My goodness gracious. I hope that was eye-opening for all of you. It was definitely a fun read. I had to skip some parts, but wow. It's really interesting to hear the levels. The names are crazy, hard to pronounce, but all the firmament, what's within the firmament, what's out of the firmament, and the spaceships and the motherships and the fire. Interesting question, though. They mention fire ships and they mention they go into fire and light. Maybe the Norse had the right idea that hell froze over and it really is frozen and not a fire. Just a thought. Just a thought. I did not read the Lord's book in this because I saw that in Thor, it was very, didn't flow right. So I'm going to leave that for another day. It is almost 4 o'clock in the morning by me, but I can't get any sleep. So I figured I would do this read. And yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed. That was the Book of Apollo from OAHSPE. If you liked my work, I'm going to do the Book of Osiris next. Please help me out in continuing to do these reads and diving into more books. Think about donating and helping me out. I live in a mandate state and I don't have a paying job right now. And donations are amazing, but if there's something that I could do for you that can make me money, that my talents can help, please bring it this way. I can't pay my bills at the end of this month. I want to make sure that I can continue to do this and have some internet. Otherwise, I hope everybody has a great night. Please like, share, and subscribe. That's another way you can help me. Have a good night, guys. Sending you all love and light. And until next time, be safe, be seen, spread love and light to the world. Whatever God is over dominion of this planet at this moment, the harvest is happening. And I wonder how many of us are going and ascending. But until next time, have a great night, guys.